Yes, thank you for joining us for another episode of Family Case Files. I'm your host, Bean, and today my legal advisor is Joanne Dennison. Yes, the famous uh, blogger who has the entire establishment on pins and needles. I have Christopher Bruce, the living man. Okay, not the straw man, the living man with us. He's also been on my show, Directly Hardcore, as he is a 5G activist. But that's not why we're here, of course. Christopher has some legal issues going on, and we're going to dive into that.
Well, start with a little background. I'll try and nutshell this as much as is humanly possible. Essentially, 4.5 years ago, my wife had a baby. Now, it's very important to mention that this baby was not biologically mine. She actually got pregnant before when we were separated for a very short period of time. We were strengthening our personal lives, and we were trying to see how we would feel without each other for a little while. And unfortunately, she got pregnant by a guy who just basically got what he wanted, put her on the side of the road, and went his merry way. Didn't want to have anything more to do with her. And so when we got back together, she told me she was pregnant. And I said, I will support you in whatever you decide to do. And we've been married for quite some time. And we'd been married for a few months by the time she had the baby, or actually about a year. And so when she had the baby, we had somebody staying with us that we were trying to help get back on their feet. They were from Florida, and we were trying to be nice and help them out and get them jobs in our city. And they basically came, they plopped themselves down on our couch and didn't move for 3 weeks, ate up all our food and borrowed our money and never paid us back. And after 3 weeks, when she went in to have the baby, I basically turned around and said to them, you have to go. I can't have a baby and two grown adults sitting on my couch all the time. You're going to have to leave because you haven't done anything with your time here. And she got mad, and on her way out of town, she decided to call DHS and tell them that we were dealing drugs and doing drugs in our apartment. Then DHS came out, and they did, this is CPS, of course. They came out to our house, did an interview. Two women came out, and they found Liz, who Liz is one of the sweetest, kindest women in the entire world. She has never been in trouble in her whole life. She wouldn't know how to act. She doesn't know how her rights, anything like that. She was, she basically just sat down, started talking to them, and let them in, of course, because most people think they have to. And they came in, they did the interview with her for about a half an hour, and then I came home, and she let me in, and I started talking to them, and we both talked to them. We told them the entire situation. And we told them that we know who had reported it. Of course, they wouldn't tell us who had reported it or confirm that we said so. And basically, they said by the end of the interview, everything was fine. There was no problem. It was obviously just vindictive behavior on the part of the caller, and that the case was closed as unfounded. So basically, they left. They came back the next morning after I had left for work, told my wife that she had to leave with them to go to the hospital, that they were going to have, they had set up a doctor's appointment for our baby. And she basically went with them, took a diaper bag with 2 bottles and a diaper in it because she thought she'd only be gone for about an hour. They took her to the hospital, had her checked out by an emergency doctor who said she was perfectly healthy and there was absolutely nothing wrong with her, and she was obviously extremely well fed and well taken care of. Then basically they made her sit around for about 4 more hours to wait for 3 more doctors to take a look at her. They all did, and they all said that she was fine. And then they turned around and checked the baby into the hospital, and without the mother's permission. and basically came back and told her that they were going to have to keep the baby overnight for some test results. That overnight ended up being 3 days, where they made her sit in the hospital and be with her baby and take care of her baby, and they basically watched her and documented everything they did. Then said that she was in need of having the child taken. They came back the next Monday. She called me up. She said they're coming to talk to me again, and I said, okay. Well, then there's no way I can get there in 5 minutes. I'm going to have you record the whole thing. She recorded the entire 12-minute removal, and this woman broke every law in the book. She didn't read any of the removal document to her. She said that she was going to have to listen to her, read it to her, and then she was going to put her initials in the boxes saying that she had understood it. She did not. She read her 3 lines of the order, she put X's in all the boxes stating that she had understood, even though she didn't hear anything and didn't understand anything, didn't read her any of the reasons for the removal, didn't give her any of her rights in the case. Basically just said, we're taking your baby and your rights might be terminated. See you later, bye. Okay?
Well, okay, so let me ask here. Joanne, so the removal rights, is this sort of like being read your Miranda rights? This is something that must be done before a child is taken?
Well, first of all, his story is very interesting, but I have to get back to the basics. So in other words, what state and what county is this in? So let's start.
I'm so sorry. That would be Polk County, Iowa, where Des Moines, Iowa, the capital, is located.
All right, that helps me out a lot. Now, obviously, I don't know Iowa law. I practice in Illinois, and most of what I do is probate court corruption. However, I do have a similar case right now in Chicago where the mother did drugs, the father didn't know it, and then they took the baby away in the hospital. And my case research in Illinois, well, it should be for the United States, is Supreme Court has said you have to have a warrant. So did she get a warrant or not?
No,
did she go?
No, and she got a temporary consent removal form. Basically, read her 2 lines of it, said you're going to have to put your initials in, put the initials in for her, signed the judge's name at the bottom of the form, and said that we're taking the baby, or removing her to foster care because it's court ordered. Of course, it's not court ordered because she needs her to sign this removal form to get the consent of the judge, who then court orders it. So she basically lied to her, put her under duress, told her that she was giving the baby up no matter what, and that she was going to have to sign this form after she read it to her. Line 7, interestingly enough, was that it stated that reasonable efforts were taken to eliminate the possible need for removal of the child. And she puts yes, and then on every line, there is nothing written. There were no reasonable efforts taken prior to the removal to prevent or eliminate it. Then also the judge at the bottom signed the signature and said, I find that reasonable efforts were taken to prevent or eliminate, and there's none listed. Okay.
Well, let's still get back to the main thing, which should be the crux of your case. The basis for anything that you file should be there was no warrant, which means the social worker has to fill out an affidavit giving the judge a reason why the child was taken. Then the judge signs it, and if there wasn't that, then this case should be reported to the state's attorney. You have a county state's attorney. You have a Iowa state's attorney. It should be reported to the FBI, especially the FBI. Social workers are involved. In order to remove a child, you have to have a social worker sign off. They should be reported to the state of Iowa, whoever licenses them. And whoever the judge is, you should be going after them to have them removed. Because obviously you went and appeared before this judge, correct?
That's correct.
Right.
I feel it's very important to mention here that I feel it's very important to mention here that I've read through every shred of Iowa Juvenile Code, and I could not believe that absolutely everyone is protected in this instance. Everyone is not. There is no one that is to be held liable for any mistakes that are made. The Attorney General are the people that represent these people and defend them. Their offices defend the Iowa Department of Social Services. The Ombudsman does absolutely nothing. There are absolutely no agencies of government. I called over 60 agencies of federal, state, and every kind of government imaginable. Not a single person is responsible for the actions of a social worker. Not even the U.S. attorneys would file anything against these people.
Well, the social
Well,
workers
is that true? Because and CPS is a separate agency on its own, separate from everything else.
yes,
Right?
they're completely separate.
I've got
But
an interesting statement to make. The Health and Human Services Department of Washington, D.C. is allegedly responsible for the creation and training of social workers. These people themselves even said, we don't have any control over the actions of the social worker. And I'm like, excuse me? You're the people that put these people out.
Let's go back to what I'm talking about, which is the people
Okay.
you have to create a synopsis of your case, just like you told me. Your synopsis was excellent. I understand what was going on. I understand how it happened. You have to make sure you have names and addresses of all the witnesses and everything, but you need to file a formal complaint with your state's attorney who is elected and your county state's attorney. You may have a local state's attorney. You have to file complaints with all of them. You also have to file a complaint with the FBI, and you have to file a complaint. It doesn't matter. You have to do it. Right now, you can go to
I did it all. I did all of that. I did all of that. Nobody responded to any of it.
Can you send me a copy of what you filed? I'd be glad to look it over and we can resubmit it. All right?
Absolutely.
Because sometimes, and I'm not trying to be mean to you or anybody else.
That's okay.
People do their case summaries, they tend to put in some kind of stream of consciousness writing when there are certain things you can specifically point out with the documentation that's attached to it, and that will catch their eyes.
And I've got to tell you that I'm very, very guilty of that. As a matter of fact, my stuff is always full of fluff, and I agree that a lot of it could have been streamed down. But you got to remember, I'm representing myself. I've always represented myself.
That's why I'm here. I'm glad to help people understand how to write a legal brief, how to write a legal motion, how to file a complaint. And when they're denied or they come back, you send them back again, and you don't stop sending them in. So the most important thing for you to do is to get me whatever complaints you filed. I'd be glad to go through them. I'd be glad to revise them to you. If you get them in Google Docs, Word, or whatever, I'd be glad to help you with that and put together these cognizable complaints. The other people you complain about, other than the social workers, there were attorneys involved. And I'm sure the attorneys did nothing or they participated in the lies, correct?
Okay. Yep.
Right. So they have to be reported not to the Bar Association, not to the Iowa Bar Association. There will be an Iowa disciplinary board.
I did that.
All right. So I want to see a copy of those too. There's also a judicial complaint committee. All right. And you need good. And then the other level of what you need. I see you have a blog. The blog is good. Okay. There's probably some tweaking you could do to it, but it's good. You know, the problem is I get all the stuff on the first page and everything, and it's a little bit too much stream of consciousness and conclusory inflammatory writing. And that's what you need. You need the legal writing, which is on this day this happened, on this day this happened, and then you say.
Can I input something here? You have to remember that this is 4.5 years and involving 8 state cases, and we're talking about appellate cases, district court cases, criminal cases, juvenile cases, juvenile.
Yes, we are going to get into that.
That's what all of this is over. It has gone way past the termination of our parental rights. That was done in 6 months. We appealed the termination. They started out. I feel this is very important to mention. After so many months, and it was just about time to call the whole 6-month thing over. In Iowa, it's 6 months. You're given 6 months. longer if you need it. But generally, the reunification has to take place in 6 months, or they terminate your rights. And in Iowa, they have termination of parental rights have gone up 51% in 3 years. They basically, even if you do everything right and you do everything the social workers tell you, you don't come up dirty on your tests, they still terminate your rights anyway. They've done it many times.
I am fully aware of that, and I know that every case that gets into the system, 99% of the time, they rule to take away the kid. And that is one thing we have to stop. And I am 100% with you. I have other cases, like I said, this other guy had his baby taken right out of the hospital. He didn't do anything wrong. Why did this father lose any rights? I don't understand that.
I got to jump in with a question really quick here. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that no drugs were found, by the way, and you had been taking those drug tests, and you've come out clean, correct?
Incorrect. Now, I will tell you what happened after the initial removal. The mother had a cord stat test done on her when she had the baby, which was 9 days before the removal. She came out squeaky clean, of course, because neither of us do drugs. The first drug test done on both of us was falsified. He basically said that we both came up dirty for meth, something that my wife has never even seen, let alone wouldn't have any clue on how to do, wouldn't know where to find it, etc. And mine came out less dirty than hers. She came out more dirty than me. And I've done drugs in my past when I was a kid, but never anything recently. And I have not done anything recently, but I will say that I do hang around some questionable people, and on occasion, I allow them to do drugs around me. Now, I do not generally judge people for that, and I generally don't even think about the fact that, hey, I may have to drug test this week. I mean, it's those things I don't think about, but I said that it was possible that I might come up dirty for something. But I said that very clearly, and basically, the thing that I said I might come out dirty for was what we both came out dirty for. And the funny thing was, she has never been, she took 2 hits of pot in her entire life. The second one almost sent her to the hospital. She can't do any kind of smoking or anything like that. She has no desire to even be near drugs, let alone do them. She would never come up dirty for a drug test. And I said, I don't care what you say about me. If you call my wife a drug addict one more time, I'm coming over the table. Essentially, but she came up dirty for meth, I came up dirty for meth, and 6 months later, they tested me on a surprise test. This was the only 2 tests they ever did, and I caught them red-handed falsifying the drug test results for me. And then I had my wife ask for a witness for hers. They wouldn't let her have one, but when she walked out of the building, she had her cup with her. I did another test in that cup, and it came out the same as the first. No results. It was inactive. They were trying to set us up for another dirty. And I catch them in the middle of it.
How did you catch them falsifying?
Oh, that's an interesting question, my friend. And I will tell you that what happened was while the drug tester was there, and I found out that he was the manager of all the drug testing centers in Iowa. He had come personally because I had written about the first drug test and cost him over $10,000 in remodeling fees to remodel his center to come up to the right way so that it would look like a drug testing center, because it did not when I walked in. It was a big empty room with a big desk in the middle. Didn't even look like a drug testing center. And the guy cut my hair with school scissors and didn't use drugs or gloves or anything. I mean, this was crazy. And that was the first test they falsified. Then the second one, the manager of the centers himself came to test me because he wanted to get back at me for that little stunt. And he basically took me to the courtroom bathroom, said I had to take this test. And I said, no, I don't. I consent to do it. And he said, okay, fine. And he stood next to me while I peed, which I thought was funny because I didn't even know there was going to be a drug test, and hadn't had one for 6 months. And I asked him how the drug test worked, and he told me the entire thing. And I said, so what do my results say? And he goes, starts turning my cup away from me, and he starts taking pictures of it. And he says, I'm going to send these to your worker, and she's going to tell me how you came out. I knew how I was going to come out because I knew I was clean. He basically, I called the social worker when we were done. I got the cup out of the garbage, and I called the social worker when we were done, and I said, oh, by the way, I came out clean with my drug test just to see if I could trip her up. She called me back while I was with my wife at the drug testing center and said that I came up dirty for meth again. And I said, oh, really? And I hung up on her. And then I asked my wife to get her stuff, and we were leaving, and she took the cup with her. I took the cup home and took the test again, and it still came out non-active. It was a non-active cup. There were no results whatsoever. There were 3 ways you could tell the results. None of those things had happened in my drug test.
Well, my
That's how I
suggestion to my clients, all right, is if you take a drug test and you have enough money and they're pulling this on you, you go to the hospital if you can, or you go to an honest drug testing facility.
I didn't have anybody like you around to tell me these things. I had to take it all on stride, you know. So
well, yeah,
I thought I did pretty well.
That's
I
why
caught them doing everything. I caught them doing everything wrong in my case. Every time they made a mistake, I was on it. But this judge was so crooked. He had an array of things that he had ways of dealing with somebody like me. So he was ready for me.
So, Joanne, as far as alternative testing, you said going to a hospital and get testing done there, and what about
you can go to the ER? You can go to the ER if you don't have any other place to go. Or you can get a prescription from your doctor, and you just head to in Chicago we have LabCorp, they're a big testing facility, and you can go there, and they're honest, and they'll do an honest, clean drug test. So what happens when you go to court? Now you've got the dirty false drug test from DCFS, and then you got another drug test. 15 minutes later? And it's
half an hour later. Yeah.
Well, whatever it is, at least it's a clean drug test, and it shows that they're dirty. And then, of course, you have to go back, and obviously they're charging the state for these. The best thing to do is to file what's called a qui tam, and you allege fraud. The other thing, too, is
I did.
Medicare and Medicaid, you filed a qui tam. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that's still
I do my homework.
No, that's good, because qui tams are great, and because the taxpayers are paying for false drug tests. And I understand what you went through, because there's been 2 huge scandals with drug testing. One of them was in Canada, where they took away like 2,000 kids. And what they were doing is they were ignoring, because most women color their hair, right? And what they do is they use a chart for non-hair coloring, which has a lot less alcohol that's allowed than the hair coloring charts. And that's the way they were doing it. And they started using this one lab because they were taking away the kids of almost every single parent. And that's the way DCFS works, okay? But yes, the best thing to do is to go to the nearest hospital, ER, drug testing facility, and get your own drug test and file that with the court, all right?
Right.
I'm
right.
sorry this happened to you. I know it's very, very difficult.
Okay. I would like to also say that I did all the things that you told me to do, and I will tell you that right before permanency, they deemed that the legal father, who was me, by the way,
Yes.
legal father was an extraneous father due to an Iowa Supreme Court ruling, and that the biological father had been found, and they didn't need me in the case. I was no longer a case of party of interest, and they threw me out of the case and threw away all of my drug testing evidence with me. That's how they got around that.
Hold on. I've got to be here because I know that whenever a woman has a child and she's with a partner, a husband, or whatever,
Married.
the biological father isn't around, the husband or even a live-in boyfriend gets hit with that birth certificate. His name is on there, and there's no way that you can take that from.
They told me I had no rights to be that child's father. They threw me out as an interested party in the case and said that I'm the regular father. Yeah.
They have to get a court order on that. They actually have to do a hearing.
Nope, the Supreme Court of Iowa backed up the entire decision. Yep.
Well, you'll have to give me a copy of the decision because that sounds
Oh,
weird.
I'd be happy to give you all of that.
The
Yeah,
best
I thought it was kind of funny that the entire country thinks of a legal father as a father with rights to a child, but the state of Iowa ruled that I didn't have any, and that a legal father was an extra father, and that we didn't need him because we have the biological father who is interested in the child. So therefore, you can go home now, and you don't. Yeah. And they backed up that ruling in the Iowa.
There are a lot of cases, a ton of cases, where it's very hard for fathers to get paternity and get rights if you're not married to the woman. So this is something. Do you remember the name of the case? You got a case?
Oh, absolutely. I remember every detail of every single case I've ever been involved.
Great. What was the name of the case?
The name of the case would have been Christopher Bruce and Elizabeth Bruce. Oh, I'm sorry. N. Ray Trylyn Brueggemann. Can
you spell that?
Yes, Trylyn is Trylynn. Brueggemann, Brueggeman. And I guess it would have been against me and Elizabeth too, because it was basically concerning the termination of our parental rights.
So you have another case with a published decision up at the Iowa Supreme Court?
That's correct. Oh, no, you can't find that decision anywhere. I've gone and looked for it. It's gone. I can't find it.
Your name is Bruce?
Yeah, Christopher Bruce.
And then your wife's name is?
Elizabeth Bruce.
Christopher and Elizabeth Bruce. Okay, I'll see if I can try and find that. And you
good luck with that. They buried it. That they basically put out a warrant for my arrest 1 week before the termination hearing. They didn't want me to show up for that hearing because they knew I would probably win out. So they put out a warrant for my arrest for harassing social workers in an event that had happened almost 2 months before that, and where they had recorded me on their voicemail. And I had said to them, I was basically touting them about the permanency hearing. I said, I'm going to win and you're going to lose your job. And I said, enjoy your job because it's about over. They basically fabricated charges saying that I threatened to kill that social worker and that I actually said, enjoy your life because it's about over. And then fabricated false charges. The police detective put my name as the #1 wanted criminal for harassing a social worker ahead of felons and murderers on the Des Moines website, the Channel 13 News, and also the alternative news. I was the #1 wanted criminal for over a month while they looked for me. We had moved away to Carroll, Iowa. Oh, it gets better. Then they called the Secret Service and told them that I threatened the president on my blog. The Secret Service came and arrested me by my IP address because I said on my blog, I'm going to Washington and I'm going to sit on the president's doorstep until he does something about corruption in my state. That was the threat I had made to the president. They scoured my blog looking for any way to involve the federal government to find me because none of my friends would believe that I did anything and wouldn't turn me in.
I can tell you I have heard similar stories. You're not the only one.
That's just a way to silence him because they know they're corrupt. And if they stop a person from showing up to the courtroom, that gives the court so much more power, right?
No, actually, there was a reason behind that. There was a reason why they didn't want me to show up. In Iowa code, if you don't show up for your termination, you don't have a right to appeal.
Oh.
Aha. So they were trying to scare me away so that I wouldn't show up by threatening to arrest me a week before the termination. And because I didn't show up, they tried to claim several times, the Attorney General tried to claim I had no standing to appeal because I didn't show up for my hearing. I said, well, yeah, because you put out a warrant for my arrest. But they heard the case anyway.
Yeah, that for sure sounds unconstitutional.
Oh, you think?
You don't have to do anything. They have to prove their case by clear and convincing evidence in order to lose your child. And not only
they did hear the case. I will give them credit for that. They did hear the case. Right. A year and a half later, but they heard it.
Oh, okay. Well, I understand that. So then you also have a bunch of other lawsuits. I think the show producer is going to send you my form, and maybe you can fill it out, and we can get some more information and all the stuff we went
Absolutely.
through. Because it sounds like you have a really, really interesting case, and I would absolutely love to work with you on filing these complaints properly.
Mhm.
And also, I would be glad to help you with getting rid of the judges. I think one of the things, Anthony, you might do that I've asked you about, and you had some interest in it, NASCAR, the National Association to Stop Guardianship Abuse, has what's called a most wanted list. They don't say that these are, excuse my French, lawyers and judges, but it's actually the lawyers and judges list. I'm hoping you can put that up on your blog, my blog, and we can start this for custody cases. And I think you probably could start our list.
As long as they don't put me as the #1 offender, I'm all for it.
We're not. I won't ever tell anybody who gave me the information. I never do that. But I would definitely like the list and the office, and I would like to start. We got Iowa right now. We got Iowa, and I'm sure you had a bunch
I've got
of
them all on an article already. I have an article called the Corrupt Courts and Corrupt Officials List, and I've already put all the stories about all of these people as they dealt with us on the blog.
Great. I'd love to have that, and I'm going to try and I'm going to send you my form, or they're going to publish the link when it's done, because I'd love to go through that with you. I think the court had no jurisdiction, and of course, if there's no jurisdiction, you can keep on appealing this. So.
Oh, you want the best part? You want the best part? They asked her if she had Indian in her blood, and she said yes. The social worker said no. Deprived her of ICWA intervention for 6 months, the entire period of the case. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I have a recording of it. I have a recording of that.
That's very interesting, because you can actually go to the Indian tribes and ask them to be involved. Yeah.
I did, but that was at the end of the case, right before the termination. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I didn't know you could get the intervention. I didn't know you could.
Well, see, that is very interesting. Having Native American blood can get you an intervention.
Mm-hmm.
It can get you into the Indian courts, because they're a separate sovereign nation apart from the United States.
Different jurisdiction. Yep. They deprive her of that.
Christopher, calm down.
That would be another reason for dismissing your case on appeal, is the fact that they have no jurisdiction.
I would think, but they didn't. We put all of that into the petition for appeal. They just blew over it. They covered up the whole thing.
Wait a minute.
They covered up the whole.
The petition for appeal is a petition when you go to the Supreme Court.
Correct.
What should happen after your rights are terminated, you have a right to an appeal with your appellate court. And so what happens is they prepare a record on appeal, and then the next step is you get to submit a brief.
Not Iowa.
All right, we're just talking about it, all
It's
right?
a notice of appeal. That's a note that we are supposed to. This is how an appeal works in a juvenile matter. You write a combined certificate. You notice to appeal. Then basically, you have to go down to the court and ask them to send the Supreme Court your records. They didn't tell me that for 3 months. Then also that then you have to, and basically you just do a petition of appeal, and that's it. That's all you do.
All right, when I get off of here, I'll take a look at the rules for Iowa appellate procedure, because that's different than any other state I've heard of. I have helped people with their appeals, of course, in Illinois, Wisconsin. This is the first time I've heard of a procedure that's like that, but the states can differ markedly.
Exactly.
And maybe Iowa's got a problem, because you should have an automatic right to an appeal with the appellate court, not the Supreme Court. And the appellate court should make the first decision that there may have been missteps, and it should be returned to the trial court for further proceedings, or dismissed if they had no jurisdiction. I think the lack of a warrant is a U.S. Supreme Court case. You can look that up. And unless there's a dire emergency, in other words, you're standing over the child.
They claimed a dire emergency. They claimed a dire emergency. There was no dire
emergency. This is not President Trump, where we're going to have a dire emergency to build a wall for scorpions and armadillos. No, there's no dire emergency. They had to have a warrant. So without the warrant, they have no jurisdiction, and you can keep on appealing. Now, I assume you also filed in your local federal district court, correct?
That's correct.
Very
They
good.
dismissed both of our suits within an hour of
Yes.
each other on one day.
All right, and then I assume what happened. Okay, so you filed a suit for the wrongful termination of parental rights, 42
No.
U.S. 1983.
No,
All right.
I filed on the basis of 3 federal codes. One was the RICO Act, which I have evidently no standing to bring.
No, never file
Oh,
RICO.
no. I'm not done.
They
The
took
1983 was the main, the 1983 was the main action. It was
Yes,
the main action.
1983 is what you want to go under. That's deprivation of civil rights under color of
Right.
authority.
And
When
they
you filed-
told us that all of them are immune to that action.
Let's take a quick break right here. Quick commercial break, guys, and we'll be right back.
Say hello.
This is my friend Cliff.
Okay, was it a tape recorder? I'm not gonna be
Yes.
recording.
Yes.
Well,
I can't be recorded. I don't know, my supervisor allowed me to be recorded.
you tell Nancy McCoy Clifford Lee said hello. You understand me?
I don't want to.
See, I've already caught one of your investigators and one of your caseworkers lying.
So much.
I'm not gonna be recorded. I wouldn't record you.
No, you won't.
You know, I want to record you, and I can easily do that. You know.
Flip it out. You have that right.
I don't want to deal without that.
Now I just have to take you to court or something. I don't know what else to do.
Hey.
You just walked out.
Yep.
Ain't my fault.
I was feeling really scared because I didn't know where I was and I don't know what was happening or whatever. And because these people just came to my house and just took me, it was like at night when they took me to this house, and I felt really scared because these were the strangers I was living with, and I had no idea what was going on.
Switched homes, like more than 8 homes, just about. And then I was getting in a lot of trouble because, well, I was confused and stuff like that.
Well, it's kind of hard because nobody really likes to move from another person's house that you're just starting to get to know. And then you move out, and then you gotta get to know somebody all over again.
Like nobody wanted me. Like people will give up. Like if I do one little thing wrong, they'll just send me away to somebody else.
I was like, is this the last home I'm going to? And I go to like 3 more homes.
Hello there, this is Lyra Jubb, and I would like to introduce you to 2 organizations I was instrumental in creating while enduring the harrowing experience of losing my children to the terroristic and broken system commonly known as CPS in the family court process. After losing my parental rights, I began seeking any assistance possible. The problem was that for as many people who have been going through a similar crisis as myself, there was no clear understanding of how to proceed after parents entered into the family court system. There were advocates willing to help, but different advocates had different information due to the confusion of the family court process. Their efforts were largely unfruitful as a result of this confusion, and many advocates were becoming overloaded with the barrage of parents in crisis. Over the past 3 years, I have been working with others to develop these 2 organizations and the websites to assist in dealing with this systematic failure. The Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families was founded in March of 2016. Our vision was to help families remain whole and to support families that have been separated work towards reunification. To find and combine groups and advocates who share this vision and want to help. We are here to assist in a wide range of family and community support programs. Our mission is to find and offer support, counseling, and advocacy for parents involved with family court, DCFS, CPS, related child custody matters, or any family-related matters. We aim to bring clarity, knowledge, understanding, education, and application to the people. We want to be providing the cutting-edge standards and abilities. We have advocates available to assist in pro se representation and provide on-call assistance on our sites and in the social network. We also lobby for laws to protect family values and reunification of families. We meet with federal, state, and local government officials and lobby for equal treatment of parents in the eyes of the law. We are dedicated to supporting parents and families with education, counseling, and nonviolent solution-based advocacy. The Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families is a faith-based nonprofit, and we do accept donations, and we have lots of outreach programs that we are pursuing at this time. If you would like to get involved, please visit our site at www.coalition4, that's the number 4, protection.com, and sign up with our parent advocate registration form.
So yes, we are back. The Spend the Case Files. I still have Joanne Dennison with us and Christopher, our guest. Now, I want to ask you, Joanne. For me, the thing is that really trips me up is to hear people say, well, I don't have my documentation, or Christopher just now saying, well, you're not going to find this, they buried it. So how can a person avoid their stuff being covered up and buried? How does one keep up with their paperwork? How do you go to these hearings and meetings? I mean, do you just request the paperwork then? If you got to go to a clerk right after every appointment, after every hearing? I mean, what do you suggest? How does that work?
You have a lot of good questions there, and I'd be glad to answer them for you. If you are in the trial court, okay, so you're at the first level. Now, for the type of case that Mr. Bruce has, they will typically have a court reporter and you can get a transcript. So the first way to keep your judge honest is to have a court reporter. Make sure the court is going to provide one, or you bring one and pay for that court reporter, because she can save your life.
The termination hearing, in my case, in this particular case that we're talking about right now, never happened. It did not happen. They did not hold it. They did not transcribe it. They had a transcriber fabricate one set of transcripts. We can absolutely prove without question, no doubt about it, that our termination hearing did not occur. What happened was it took them almost 6 months to ask for the transcripts. By that time, they had totally fabricated a set of transcripts that read like a fairy tale. The judge, who had never said a single kind word to anybody in that courtroom, as long as they were below his tier, said, waxed on for probably 5 pages, and by the time he was done, you felt very, very empathetic with this guy. He thought he was the greatest guy in the world. This guy did not say a single word that was said in those transcripts. There was a GAL that we had who never said more than 2 words in any one hearing. He waxed on for at least 10 pages about our case. And essentially, this hearing did not happen. They caused us to miss us, and they said, well, we might as well just not even hold the hearing. We'll just make something up later. I'm sure that's what happened, because this was so full of drivel and sappy stuff that there's no way that anybody that knew any of these people would say, oh yeah, they were at that hearing, because nothing that was said sounded like any of these people.
So I wanted to go over the court reporters, as Mr. Bruce brought up, and it was a very good point. What happens if the transcripts have been changed? I've run across a case of that, or they have been corrupted, or they were fabricated. Now you've got a genuine issue of corruption that needs to be brought up, immediately sent to the police, the state's attorneys, and everybody that this court reporter is corrupt. There's a licensing authority for that court reporter. In Illinois, it's the Illinois Department of Professional Regulation. You file a complaint with them, and you keep on filing complaints until they get that court reporter her license taken away. And whatever she charged the state, of course, is a fraudulent charge, and you need to file a qui tam. All right? So that was a very good point you brought up. I really do appreciate it. So make sure when you get to court, get that court reporter and get an honest one. So ask your friends, which court reporters you can depend on, because there are a lot of crooked court reporters who can be bought. All right, I'm going to tell you that right now. I had one at my ARDC trial. She changed the transcripts, and she wasn't even licensed for 10 years. So that's a good story, right? Make sure when you go to court, after every court proceeding, the judge has to write up a court order. Make sure the judge writes a court order that is a memorandum of what happened in that court, who brought this motion, what the judge decided, and if there were findings of fact and conclusions of law. He can read those in the record with the court reporter, or he can put them on a piece of paper. Make sure a court order is written up and you get a copy of it. Don't leave the courtroom until you get a copy. Now, I know there's a lot of courts, you're probably going to say, and I bet, I never got a court order. So that is something you need to take up on appeal, because the judges should be giving you a court order, all right? That helps you document the case. Now, I have not looked for the case of Elizabeth and Bruce.
Christopher Bruce.
Christopher, right. Okay, I've not looked for that case. I will look for it, and I'll see if I can find it online at the Iowa Supreme Court website and see if there's anything at the appellate court. And then I'll also look in the private reporter online sites, which I do have Fast Case, and I have access to Westlaw and Lexis. All right?
I'm very familiar with those systems, yes.
They're very good systems. I know in Chicago, you can go to the law library. I know you've been to the law library, and I'm going to applaud you for going to the law library. All right. If you can get to the law library or get a good online service, which is Fast Case, Lexis, and Nexus, that's where you want to go, because you've got the citations. Because in court, you have to use the page number citations. All right?
Mm-hmm.
We have moved to a new system where it's online. So that means when you pull a new case, say 2010, 11 to 2017, 18, 19, you can just get it right off the website, and you don't have to go to a special service to get your case with the page numbers and the paragraph numbers. That's really important when you're dealing in the courtroom situation. Bruce,
I do all my filing electronically.
Time for Bruce's story. All right, tell us.
Okay, now I'm going to back up to where you were talking. I'm going to say that our court reporter did not, the court reporter that they said transcribed these may have very well transcribed what they play acted, and that they wrote up these transcripts. But essentially, this was a fabricated case. It never happened. And I can prove that in many, many ways. But neither here nor there. We had several court reporters over a period of time in all of my cases, and each one of them said they were very proud of their own work and that they did a very good job. Each single solitary transcript that I ever got from any one of my cases was always fabricated, or either fabricated or changed, or something was left out, or something was put in. I mean, almost every single one of them. And we also were told by the Iowa Juvenile Court. Now, this is very interesting, because we were told by the clerk of court that they do not make recordings of juvenile proceedings, except that I had an Iowa form in my hand that asked for a juvenile hearing recording that I would pay $7 for a copy for. And you fill this out and you turn it into the clerk, and they say, okay, well, here's your copy. Well, I went in there with that form, and they said, we don't make juvenile court proceeding recordings. We don't do that. We have a transcriber, and we'll sell you your transcripts at $3.50 a page. Oh, and by the way, your transcripts from all of your hearings will be around $1,000. The Supreme Court of Iowa, after sitting on our case, our appeal, for a year and a half, ordered us to pay for the transcripts at our expense, or they wouldn't address any of the issues that happened in the entire case. They would only address the termination case. If we did not pay for those transcripts, then they would not deal with those issues. They got out of doing everything that concerned the Crooked case and the proceedings that took place in it by ordering us to pay for our transcripts at our expense. And because we didn't do it in 2 weeks, which was all the time they gave us, they basically dismissed all those issues.
That is crooked. That's the most crooked thing I've heard on the show yet.
okay, because I think there's a few tricks here that you're not aware of. First of all, are you indigent? Do you?
I am very indigent.
All right, so you
Have
don't
been
own
all
a
of my
home.
life.
Hold on. Do you own a home?
No.
All right, good. That's the first question I have to ask. Second one is, do you own cars with a value totaling $2,500?
No.
All right, so no cars. All right. And then your income for the two of you is 125% or less of the poverty level, correct? Without revealing your income, I don't really care. All right, in most
We were
cases,
indigent the entire time. Huh?
in most cases, I'll tell you what it is in Illinois, because I can't tell you Iowa. But
Okay.
in Illinois, you can do something. You file a petition for a fee waiver. Sometimes they're called paupers petitions.
We
Sometimes
did
they're
that.
called various. They're various names. Okay, so you're going to look for that. You go to the clerk
We did that.
and you say, "Can I have your form to waive fees?" And they should give you a form and a very short financial statement.
They did waive the fee. They would not waive
All right.
the fee to pay for the transcripts.
So the thing is, what I've been doing recently with clients, when they get the fee waiver and the order says this person has fees that are waived, I am now having to politely ask the judges, and they have been doing this, for a copy of the court file for free and for the transcripts for free. Okay, we had a little bit of a blow up over it, but I think when you get your fee petition, whatever judge grants that, because they usually have like a sitting judge or just a judge that's brought in to do it, then it's a good time when you get that fee waiver to also ask for transcripts and copies of the file for free, because you know
We
you're
did.
not going to be served with anything.
We
You know
did.
that.
We did everything you just said.
Good.
And they
All
would
right.
not.
I'm just checking.
They would not cover the transcripts at state expense, except for the fabricated termination papers.
All right. I do think though that you might have a bit of a case, even at the Supreme Court level, to put in your appellate brief. You should have gotten those for free, because the county has a budget. They have money for the disabled and for the handicapped. They get from the federal government, and that money should be used for the indigent, the poor, and all of that. And one of the things
Absolutely, and I do not argue that or belabor that point whatsoever.
Right. So that is one point you could make when you go back to the judge and say, look, you've got all this money coming in. It's supposed to be used for the elderly, the handicapped, and the poor. Why aren't you using that for transcripts for this group? Okay. And the other thing you can do is, if you really want to be snotty, I'll tell you how you can be really snotty with the court and with state agencies like DCFS. Every month, the federal government, Congress, holds a budget appropriations meeting, and they cannot release those funds to the state, to the counties, if somebody comes in there and says they're corruption. You can actually find the date. They're going to fund your court system. I've known people to go out there, fly there, and sit in there and hold up the funding until they cleaned up the case. And I'm telling you, this was done in hours. So that's another suggestion I've had people do.
I would love to see somebody succeed at that in Iowa. I have never seen corruption go so deep as I have in Iowa. I have to finish the juvenile portion of this by saying only this. 2 months after they terminated our parental rights, we held an appeal. We asked for the appeal to the child assessment, the child protective assessment, which is basically the report that the initial removing social worker made against us, okay, against an assessment of our family and our situation. We caught 55 lies made in that particular document. We not only called 40 witnesses to that hearing, we tore those people a new butt. And when they were done, they said to us, and I quote, "We were wrong to take your child. We should have never removed that child to begin with. The agency themselves said we should have never removed her. They changed the assessment to unfounded. They took us off the abuse registry. We submitted that decision to the Supreme Court of Iowa 3 times. They rejected it 3 times, would not even look at it, said, I'm sorry, but we're terminating your rights anyway." This is not a joke. They will not return that child, even though they found we were completely innocent on all allegations.
Oh, okay. Let Christopher. Now, despite, and Joanne, I don't know if you've dealt with whistleblowers before, But we have a sort of a quasi-celebrity here. He's a bit of a whistleblower because he had his own podcast talking about the 5G. Now, as corrupt as this court is that you're dealing with, I think that any court can get this corrupt when dealing with someone that they don't like. Now, do you feel
There you
like you
go.
got special treatment because of who you are? And Joanne, is this possible?
I firmly believe that our government is here to serve us. And they don't get to say, I'm not going to serve you because I don't like you personally. Or you're stirring the pot, or I have to deal with my falsehoods and lies. That just shouldn't be happening here. And that's the hugest thing I think that's going on in Washington now. We have the internet. We have people getting together. You and I and Mr. Bruce can get on the internet, have this podcast, and literally millions of people can watch it for months. The truth is coming out. Chris is doing a great job of doing that. It probably just needs to be organized and ordered a little bit more. Bruce, Mr. Bruce, you have something to say?
It's not only the blog. I was one of the first 2 people on Facebook to start my own podcast. I put the worst possible nationwide stories on my blog. We outed these people forever. And Facebook was one of our favorite tools. Now, I want to tell you that since I got on and started doing this, that Facebook has now limited my shares to 4. I can't share anything anywhere without it being in danger of being shut down and put in Facebook jail. They have they set limits of friends to 5,000. I've been at 5,000 3 times. I mean, this is such a biased system. And speaking of bias, by the way, this particular judge that I had for a juvenile judge ended up being the person in charge of 2 of my criminal cases as well. I called that man to recuse 4 times and asked for a recusal hearing to hear his bias. He himself denied me a hearing to determine his bias against me. Can you believe that?
It's almost impossible to get a judge recused. But what I really want to get back to is a point you brought up, which is Facebook is not our friend in the United States. I will tell you, me and everybody else has had their stuff removed. What you have to do, I have a solution, and what I do is I have my Facebook, and I cross-post to my blog. All right. If I have a video, it doesn't go on Facebook. It goes on a website called Vimeo. Vimeo never removes anything. WordPress does not remove anything, and that's how I do it. I create a post on WordPress. I then push a little button. It goes right to Facebook. If I have a video, I load it up at Vimeo. None of those have ever been removed. And what I mostly have right now is I have elderly people speaking clearly, being completely competent to a very high level of intellectual discernment and thinking, but they were guardianized. And they used to remove those all the time. I haven't had a problem since. So that is my suggestion for you and for all Facebook users out there. WordPress is excellent. It's in England. There's nothing anybody can do about it. And Vimeo just doesn't give a darn about court orders. Go on. Anybody?
Well, I've never been gagged, and I've never been told to take. No, I take that back. I was actually threatened with arrest one time because I was posting my juvenile court confidential documents. And I told them, I said, you tell me that I have no right to speak freely or to post freely anything that I wish to post, and I will take you immediately to federal court where we will take it all the way to the Supreme Court. You can tell those judges how you gagged me, how you stopped me from speaking about my case. And I have never had a problem since. And there was one time where the social worker threatened the loss of my visits with my daughter when she was 2 months old, threatened me with that if I did not come in and speak to her supervisor and did not stop writing about the case in my blog. I have not seen my daughter since I was 2 months old. I said, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to take your threats, and I'm not going to stop writing about the case. I have duly documented every moment of my life for 4.5 years because I've heard in the legal world that there is no better proof of a series of events and how they occurred than a time and date stamped log, aside from body, blood, and fingerprints. So sure, the events are a little bit one-sided onto my opinion, but at the same time, the facts are all there. The paperwork is all there. I filed all 1,800 of my court documents online. So everything is.
So what you're saying right now, so Bruce, I gotta tell you, you have one hell of a gag reflex. Whoa! Don't mess with this guy. I'm sorry, I have to add a joke in somewhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is the same man that hits on my wife. But anyway, no, I'm kidding. So I'm married to the most beautiful woman on the planet. I expect that. So, and I deal with it. So, yes, now we move on because now since the arrest of the Secret Service, and by the way, on that particular case, they had absolutely no proof. They had nothing filed for proof in that case, and they dropped the main charge, which was that I threatened to kill the social worker because they had no proof, and then told the judge that they did that because I had copped out to the small charges of harassment, to the third-degree ones. The big one, the big harassment charge, they left that in the case until 2 days before trial, and they dropped it with prejudice at the very end, right before the case went out. They were so vindictive about keeping me on this case. They kept it until 2 days before trial, and they dismissed it because they didn't have any proof. And they filed the victim impact statement of one social worker 4 days after they closed the case. That's how crooked this was. And the other one didn't even file a victim impact statement. She didn't file anything. And
I've got a beef here. Now,
okay.
Yeah, Joanne, when I hear stories like, and I hear this all the time, and Joanne, I'm sure you've heard it a lot more, stories of, well, I did something for so on and such and so on, and I stopped doing those favors, and now I have this problem, and isn't there some level? I mean, we have a terror rating, right? Shouldn't we be able to put a level of a person giving a tip? There is a person who's living outside the home. There's a person living in the home. There should be a level in which a person reports from. That should be taken into consideration, I think, personally. Does this person have in Mr. Bruce's case,
I know what he's saying.
This person has this person laying up on his couch and eating up all his food, doing all that good stuff. And should this person not be questioned first? Because I think as someone giving a tip or reporting someone, that person should be investigated first before anybody else. Okay? Well, how do you feel about that? I mean, because you can't throw stones.
But you can. But you can.
You know what I mean?
Oh, but you can, and they did. This woman, I have to answer this so that she has all her facts clear before she answers this question. This woman called them one time, talked to them for 10 minutes, got off the phone. They were not able to reach her for any more questions ever again, and they took her word as gospel and came and alleged all these things against us, that we were doing drugs and dealing drugs in the apartment. And when they couldn't prove that, they then made up charges of their own and made their own allegations. Go ahead.
I don't think the problem is with the people who are reporting. It's the people who are investigating, all right? And what you got is a bunch of psychopaths filling out court reports and investigating them. And that's why it's important, Mr. Bruce, that you file complaints with the licensing board for social workers. They have a licensing board in Iowa. You need to take away their licenses. And the judges that are involved that are making these bad decisions, poor decisions, you have to make sure that you are getting them removed, which we have had several judges removed, all right? So please don't tell me you can't get a judge removed, because there are ways to get them gone. Definitely by the election, I have had many of them walk off the bench after my clients put out flyers, protests, blogs, revealed their property records, which is how they're funneling money, that's how they're taking their bribes, and a whole bunch of investigative tools. We've got rid of judges, and they deserve to be gone. These are crooked, corrupt judges. They often have campaign fund violations. Iowa has their own website that you can go to look start looking at their campaign receipts. Often the GALs and the attorneys appearing before these judges have given substantial campaign funds to the judges. That's a problem. And not revealing their property records is a problem. And also, these judges don't even have to have their tax returns inspected before they take the bench. And obviously, we're finding that out. That's a horrible problem with Trump, okay? All these people are dirty and crooked. They're churning the books. They're getting into all sorts of problems. But if you keep on them, you will get rid of them, because we have been successful in doing that. All right, Bruce, and there was one other thing, because we didn't finish out. You know, you kind of rambled on. So I get a little bye here. Is that okay? All right, he went on. Also, we were talking about you got threatened over the confidentiality of juvenile records. I really want to make this clear. The confidentiality belongs to the parents, all right? It does not belong to the social workers. It does not belong to the police officers or the attorneys in the court. So we have had social workers and attorneys say, hey, this is confidential, you can't reveal it. Well, that's not true. The confidentiality belongs to the parents. So blog away, post your court proceedings.
Oh, I did. I didn't care.
Excellent. All right. And I believe that's basically it. So you can go on with whatever topics you want to respond to.
Christopher, Bruce, if you've got anything else to add, I'll let you go ahead and say so before we end the show.
I do. I did want to comment on what you just said about the judges and their records and so on. It took me 2 years to find a single snapshot of this judge anywhere. He is so well hidden. I did requests for his properties. I looked up abstracts. I did everything. These people are so well hidden, it's not even funny. Remember when I said that I often sat outside the courthouse waiting for one of them to walk across the street? Never did any one of them ever do that, because there are tunnels dug beneath the city, and they use these tunnels to get away from these buildings. And that's how they get to work and back home. They take these tunnels and they get back home through the tunnels. They are the county attorney in my state handles 11,000 cases a month. He said this in an affidavit. 11,000 cases in a city the size of Des Moines, Iowa, in the middle of Iowa. There are 11,000 crimes that have to happen in Polk County every month. Sorry, not buying it. Then, second of all, this guy was so crooked, he wouldn't even let you leave a message on his voicemail without his secretary wanting to know why he wanted to leave it. His offices sit behind 2 inches of bulletproof glass. This is in Des Moines, Iowa. How many people are going to come in there with a rifle and shoot him unless he's doing the wrong thing? But anyway, my point being is that these officials are so crooked and so corrupt. It blows you away to see it. I'm going to tell you real quickly. I'm just going to zoom right through all the rest of what happened. I moved to Carroll. I was in Carroll, Iowa for quite a while. I had been there only a month when they came and arrested me with the Secret Service. After that, I had no more trouble. And then in September, I had a problem with one of the advocates. We had a little falling out. We had gone to some kind of a protest together. She was there for 2 hours, gave me 1,000 flyers, took off and left me there in the hottest part of the day to work for 4 hours, handing out these flyers for her. And we called her out on that stuff the next morning, and she decided to take a personal vendetta against me and basically got me in a lot of trouble. Then turned around and filed charges against me at the behest of the county attorney, who had nowhere else to go. I had just emailed 8,000 LA County social workers to let them know that their business was out on my blog on the internet. They didn't like that very much. They called my county attorney and had him set me up with this lady, basically got with her, had her bring in a whole array of witnesses that I didn't even know, basically set me up, and I went to jail for a year for this. And 2 days before, I'm just going to tell you real quick, 2 days before trial, they dismissed every single witness I had called, told them not to come back. They had a motion in limine. They granted it that day, basically saying I couldn't talk about my juvenile cases, couldn't talk about the fact that this had all occurred because I had talked with social workers via email in LA County, couldn't mention any of that. The judge ordered none of that was to ever come out. 2 days before the jury went into deliberations on my case, they ran an article in the Des Moines Register containing facts from fed to them by the county attorney and also by the FBI, who they also involved because I had said something about being a state citizen, a sovereign citizen, and they said they lumped me in with sovereign citizens, which I had never said. I never used those words. I said I'm a sovereign national. I'm a sovereign state national. And they lumped me in with sovereign citizen movement, a group of loosely affiliated domestic murderous, lawless domestic terrorists. And they called me that, basically, essentially. They made me look like a total criminal. And I had never, ever had a violent record. I had never had any incidents of anything. I had been arrested 2 times for simple misdemeanors in an entire 47-year period.
Sovereign citizens are not crazy murderer people. These are people who know the difference between common law and corporate law. And secondly, I want to not add on conspiracy, because that's what the Red Pill Hardcore is for. Well, I should only be talking about conspiracies there. But I myself have sat outside of courtrooms from open till closed, and knowing who the judges were, not seeing any enter, not seeing any exit. I thought that was kind of strange. Maybe they have some rape dungeons with all the children they can steal in tunnels. Who knows? But anyways, that's enough for Family Case Files. I want to thank you, Bruce, for being a guest on the show. And I want to thank Joanne Dennison, my legal advisor for this episode, for being on the show. And people, please contact this lady, seek legal advice, and also make donations, because she is a wonderful lady who most of the time works out of the goodness of her heart. And, you know, she's got expenses that she pays out of pocket. She gets the money where she can. Having being defrauded and disbarred by the corrupt state in which she was exposing. That's why she's on the show, ladies and gentlemen. She is a whistleblower.
I like her already.
Exposes people. And this has been another episode of the Family Case Files. And please catch us next time.